Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week breaking down a streaming favorite. In today's episode, we primarily will be discussing the fourth episode of Cape Fear. Joining me for this conversation, as usual, is Sona. How are you doing, Sona?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I can't complain. I had a couple
of
questions.
Knicks fever?
Knicks fever, yes. Oh, of course. We haven't spoken since that, of course. How exciting.
Super exciting.
I've actually discussed it here in the podcast because of, it's been a week
Sure. Yeah.
since the win. But yes, how thrilling is this? This 53-year, incredible 53-year drought comes to an end. And I mean, I have a lot of confidence in this team, actually. I think that we're going to see them in the finals again, but hopefully it won't take 53 more years for a win or 27 more years for an appearance. Did you guys celebrate it all in a more formal, other than, high-fiving in the living room?
In the living room from our bed, actually, in the bedroom, because the next day we, of course, had a youth soccer game. That was, I'm just looking, an 8:20 a.m. arrival. So,
oh, nice.
So yeah, we tried to cover all our bases by staying up to watch it, but doing it from our beds.
I was really shocked. I honestly felt that they were going to probably lose the game and then come back to New York. It just felt fitting as well. And we were seeing it. We had a last minute party. About 15 or 20 people were there. Half of them kids. So it was just a very small group of adults. But it all got thrown together at the last minute and we got to watch it with some friends. So that was fun. But everybody in the room, it just felt like, I don't think the momentum's going their way. And again, like this team always, that it's like all of a sudden it's the last 2 minutes and it looks like they're going to win and they won again.
So tight. Yes. It was really a nail biter. As so many games were lately for the Knicks.
Just yesterday, I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube of watching sportscasters who were calling the game, reacting with them on camera, reacting to the final moments of the previous game.
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty amazing. Like you see the New York, telecasters and how they suddenly have their spirits are broken in the last couple of minutes. They are so ecstatic. But then, of course, to see the Spurs commentators arms crossed.
Oh,
it's funny because, of course, they have that on mic. They have that real professionalism, but you see their body language and they're just so crestfallen by what's happening before their eyes. Pretty amazing stuff.
Well, a great lesson for all of us to never give up.
Never give up. That's true. Never give up.
You just never know.
Look, when you are one of the largest media empires in the world, and have some of the most expensive salary caps for any sports league, sometimes you can win a championship.
Sometimes. Once every half century or so.
Century, yes. That's the other lesson from all of this, by the way. The idea that, you can just buy the to win a championship. I was being facetious there and saying those underdogs, New York City, get to win a championship. But it has been 53 years since they won a championship, right? So to the fact that A, never give up, and B, the idea that big money will just get you those that's not true. That's not how that works. So before we get into actually, I have a big topic that I'd like to cover with you if you got around to it. Anyway, I'll feel you out in just one moment. But before then, speaking of sports, the World Cup, you are a soccer family, as you just mentioned. Is your son digging the World Cup? Are you watching all the matches? Is he thrilled for this? Australia, by the way, Darren and I have beef potentially today because it's Australia versus the US. And is he excited for the game or the match, I should say? And are you guys planning to see any of the games?
So we have been watching the games at home. We are a soccer family, with my husband being the number one soccer fan. My son is primarily a fan of his own team. So he does watch, though. He is interested. And I will spare everybody the tirade I have been on lately about ticketing processes in 2026 and how impossible it is to see a live event. So in the end, I think it is very unlikely that we will see any of these games in person because there are just certain limits to physical capabilities of enduring the process, as well as financially. But it is really exciting to have it here. It is really exciting to be a part of the city that's hosting the World Cup. And all of that is good stuff. I just think that maybe we've lost the plot a little bit as far as allowing people to attend these events without enormous amounts of privilege or winning a lottery, which is the other way that people seem to be able to get tickets. So yeah, that's where we are. Have you decided whether or not to Airbnb your house out for World Cup fans?
We thought about it actually, but the decision was to not do that. But yes, we know people. I mean, we're not that close, although we probably could have Airbnb considering there's like a bus route that goes to the stadium from here. And by the way, that you can't drive to the stadium. So you have to basically go to a lot, which is much closer to our house than the stadium is. And so very convenient to just like grab an Uber there, a very short ride away, and then just take the bus to the stadium anyway. So yes, it would have been feasible, but we decided against it. But we did have friends of ours who seriously contemplated it, who just put in a new pool last year and put an extension on the house. And we're like, this would be like a luxurious Airbnb. The problem, of course, and they were absolutely correct, is that they could have Airbnb'd for a fortune, but the house with the extension and the pool and everything would become a party house. And you would probably have like 10 families there, there to share the Airbnb, which would have probably gone for tens of thousands of dollars to book it for a 1 or 2 week period to be able to have a nice luxurious home to come back to after. And my experience, a little experience we've had renting houses that we've had in the past, that when you have a bunch of rowdy people in your house, the house needs some repairs afterwards. So you got to weigh all that out by the time.
Sure. I think there are limits you can place within the Airbnb platform on the maximum capacity and whatever. But I totally understand why somebody would not want to have to police that. Perhaps literally police that.
Exactly. And we would be able to, which would mean that we would definitely be here harassing the people who are Airbnb. Like, are they here just for dinner or are they here for the rest of the week? Exactly.
Even when we rent our Airbnb out on the North Fork of Long Island every year, I always get a little bit nervous that someone's going to say we got too many cars in the driveway because somebody came for lunch.
Right. Someone's going to rat you out.
Yeah.
It's complicated. But that goes back to that idea again, that probably if we had actually Airbnb and we said no, maximum of like 5 attendees in the house, and we had kept an eye on it, we probably could have Airbnb'd and made some money. But it goes back to your broader point that now, of course, the whole point is, you can rent out a house and maybe a whole bunch of hardcore fans from Australia or whoever would come to watch a match here, and they could split the costs between multiple families and make it affordable. But to your broader point, nothing's affordable anymore. Right? You can't have, like if you're going to go rent an Airbnb, it probably will be capped at only a couple of families. So now the $20,000 Airbnb is not for 5 families, which would make it somewhat equal to getting a hotel room. It now is going to be like a luxurious rental. And the tickets for the location are a crazy amount of and any food or any kind of amenities are all going to be jacked up 300%. So everything has become a luxury item, and it's really disheartening, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And I say this as a person of, I think, as far as when you take the entire country into account, a person of relative privilege who doesn't have to, luckily for me, watch where every penny is going. But I do think it would have been a decision, to use the example I just gave, of like, well, are we going to go as a family and repeat our tradition of going to the North Fork every year and renting a house for that week? Or are we going to go to the World Cup? Right? Like it's because something's got to give. Discretionary spending is not endless, And so for us, we made the choice that makes sense for our family. But when we're talking about events like this that just last a few hours, right? It
Right.
seems like we should be able to afford both, but we can't.
Yep. That's just how it is nowadays.
Yep.
But yes, we will touch base. Darren and I will definitely be discussing the results of that US-Australia match, which is today as we're recording this. So, and the next time we speak, we'll know what happened. Oh, some quick news on the podcast. First of all, speaking of Darren, we just wrapped up Widow's Bay. That episode's been getting a lot of downloads. Not surprising. Great season of TV. Great finale to the season. People very excited about all that. Very funny and scary and just great. Definitely catch up on it. You'll love
I really want to.
And I'm sure it'll be Matthew Rhys, by the way. I know you're a fan of his. Just an incredible performance in the last episode of that show. Like, as funny as it is, just utterly heartbreaking performance. Great job. So check that out. And it'll definitely be in the Emmy conversation. We'll be running down the Emmy nominations once they come out in about 3 weeks. So keep an eye out for my Emmy opinions, and maybe we'll discuss them here in the pod as well. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see at least a couple of those performers, if not the show itself, be nominated for Emmy Awards. But more importantly, because we have wrapped up on Widow's Bay, The Agency, Sona, a show we covered here in the podcast, is coming back this weekend on Sunday as a binge. The whole 10-episode dense plotting, I'm sure, of season 1. And I presume for season 2, which is based on that French series, very well respected, French spy series. So I'm sure it will be equally dense. I heard of the French show anyway, that season 2 was even better than season 1. So hopefully we get a similar result here with the US show. But as you would expect, we will not be able to cover 10 dense episodes of show in a single episode. But we do have a hole in the calendar. So Darren and I will be discussing that show in our next conversation. And then probably in a later episode, we will also wrap up the season, or maybe even split it into 3 episodes, potentially. We'll see how that all plays out. And Sona, very similarly, we will be taking a break from Cape Fear. And minor spoilers for my opinion here, Sona. I think I need a break from Cape Fear right now. So we will be taking a break from Cape Fear because next week, Sona, we will be discussing The Bear, which is coming back its final season officially now. This is the final season of The Bear, and it is coming back again, like it has for the last 4 years, 5 years in a row. This is kind of like old school TV, knocking out a season of show. I preferred if they didn't make it a binge, but it's been a binge from day one. It is going to be a binge this season as well. But Sona, similarly, it's dropping on Thursday, and then we'll be recording on Friday. Not even I will be able to watch the entire show in less than 24 hours. So,
I was worried that you were expecting me to, and I was wondering how I was going to break that to you. Great.
Get your binge on. So we will feel it out. We'll text back and forth. I say, let's try to watch 2 episodes. I assume, like previous seasons, this will be 30-minute episodes, more or less. So we'll shoot for 2. If we knock out the 2, maybe I'll text you and say, did you get through 2? Let's try to do 3. So we'll try to do 2 or 3 episodes of the show next week. That's it. And then we will get together the following week, and then we'll wrap up the rest of the season over the course of 7 days. I think I'll definitely be able to watch the rest of it, considering, again, short episodes. So we'll touch base. And of course, that allows us to take a 2-week break. So a 2-week break from Cape Fear. Again, maybe a necessary reprieve from this show. And then we'll see where we're at beyond that. And of course, as part of that coverage of The Bear, I had mentioned that there was a surprise about a month ago. And this is in the feed, everybody, if you haven't heard my episode already. I did a solo recap of this episode called Gary, which is really not considered an episode. It's considered a movie. You have to look for it. Search for Gary in Hulu. Like, it's not just under The Bear, under another episode, like under its own season or whatever. And I asked you, have you seen this yet? And maybe we can discuss it on the pod. So first of all, Sona, did you get a chance to catch up on Gary?
I did.
Excellent. Second of all, is that so for the audience out there, how did you find it? Like, did you just search for Gary? Did you go to how did you find this episode of TV?
I found it because for once, the algorithm, let me not say for once, the algorithm is often very useful, honestly. So the algorithm displayed on my homepage, my Hulu homepage, that this is something that I might want to watch. So that made it easy for me to find it. Now, how did I find the episode? Wow, what a roller coaster.
Okay, good. Interesting. I can't wait to get your opinion on it. I was mostly positive on it, but I did want to bring it up here, even though it's been out for about a month, because I keep hearing from listeners who are just listening to the back catalog of episodes, and they're like, I didn't even know this was out. So you know what? We have a week before the season finale drops. So here's your opportunity, another shout out. And we will be discussing the episode in detail because I couldn't wait after I saw this, Sona, to get your opinion of the episode itself, which I was very positive about, as I mentioned. A little setup for you, Sona, because you may not know this, but this was written by John Bernthal and the other actor's name, who's escaping me.
Richie?
Yeah, the actor's name. Evan
No.
Moss Backrack, I think his name is.
Oh, I wanted to say Elon. Okay.
Apologies for mispronouncing his
Yeah.
name. I mean, I mispronounced it as well, I'm sure.
Well, I got it
he has one of
entirely
those hyphenated
wrong.
last names, and it's a pretty unique name regardless. But they were working together on, and I don't know if this happened at the same time, but they're doing Dog Day Afternoon right now on Broadway. And I think during the rehearsals for that, they produced this film, which is directed by Christopher Storer, the creator of The Bear, but not the writer of these episodes. The two actors wrote these episodes, this bottle episode basically on their own. And then they shot it during the period of time in the past year or so, at some point along the way. So very interesting, just the kind of the genesis of this. But give me your general impressions. You said there's a roller coaster. Tell me what you thought.
So a roller coaster, not as to how much I liked this episode, which was quite a bit, but a roller coaster of emotions. I think something that's really interesting about this show, which I haven't thought about in quite some time, about the show entirely, right? Because we've been away from it for a while, is the way it references or deals with or shows us mental illness as a part of everyday life, and the way that these issues manifest in just everyday life. And of course, like the epitome of that is that Christmas episode where it's just like the family dinner from hell. And
Fishes, right? Fish.
Yes. But here, I think this was a really interesting depiction of somebody struggling with mental illness in their day-to-day lives and how that affects everyone around them. And I think the takeaways here it wasn't anything we didn't know before, but it showed us in a different way how close these two characters were and how much Richie loved Mikey. It felt to me, and tell me what you think, like he had kind of made it his mission to make this a really great, fun day for the two of them, which then I kind of read into that he knows Mikey's been struggling and is in kind of a dark place and is thinking that, and I think many of us think this when we deal with people with these types of issues, that there's something we can do that can pull them out of this, right? So maybe you can show them the brighter side of things and that life is not so awful and there is so much to love. And I felt like he was having a good time, but I also felt like he was just working so hard to try and save this guy because he could see that he needs saving. And then for it to all end the way it did with them having such a fantastic day, and then it kind of turns on a dime. I don't know if you've personally had this experience, but I've personally had this experience with people who struggle with similar issues where things are so great. And then all of a sudden it just, a switch flips and it turns so ugly so fast. And it's almost like once you've experienced it a few times, you can't even, you get angry, but you just close off a part of yourself. Like it doesn't hurt anymore because you know that this person is not in control anymore. there isn't really any, you worry that there's truth to what they're saying, but there isn't really any truth to what they're saying. They're just trying to hurt you. And you kind of have to accept that this is what the relationship is and that's what this person is. So, and I think from the other side, they did a great job of showing what Mikey was struggling with and how he has this darkness that he can't dig himself out of. And I think this came across really well in his conversations with Sherry, where he's saying for a long time, everything is great and I'm feeling so good. And then all of a sudden it's all awful. I mean, he actually articulates what I think we see him struggling with up until that point. And I think the actor did a wonderful job of showing that he just couldn't be happy, you know, that he could have these moments of happiness, but overall that darkness just kept coming back and he couldn't get away from it. Now, tell me your thoughts.
Oh, I loved everything you just said. And exactly like you mentioned, as I'm watching it, I have not, as far as I know, I've never had anybody who had this level or even close to this level of mental illness. However, I think not everybody, or many people in our lives probably have undiagnosed mental illness of some kind. But I absolutely have had that experience in the past, diagnosed or not, or whatever the mental illness might happen to be, whether it's depression or some other kind of personality disorder of some kind, that definitely have had that experience of somebody like, you're just having a good time. And then all of a sudden, it seems like out of the blue, there's just suddenly like a total tone shift. And exactly like you mentioned, like sometimes you're in relationships with people like this, and then all of a sudden you just start to, little by little, just start to close off that part of yourself. When all of a sudden that switch flips, you just have to put up your armor. And then over time, you're just like, you can't open yourself up to somebody else or to that person anyway, because it's just inevitably you're going to get hurt, right? As soon as you drop your shield down, you're going to get hurt again. So I think anybody can relate to that. And just a little context, what you're describing, or just something that I was thinking about as you were saying that, I just love this idea. Part of the reason that this can be, honestly, a little self-indulgent, but there's this level of indulgence that Christopher Storer with the show allows actors to like kind of ham it up if they want to. And I think that's why so many people want to be on the show, because they want to, get an opportunity to really like chew a scene up. And I thought, like with season 2, it definitely bumped me a little bit sometimes with some of that over the top and all these famous people coming in for these guest roles. When in season 1, we discussed this already, but so much of the cast seemed like unknown to us. And then, John Barenthal was somebody who obviously is recognizable, but was only like used in the background, like sparingly. So it almost was like, yeah, he is a movie star, right? That's the whole point, that the ghost of his brother is this like larger than life character. And then all of a sudden you have like John Cena doing, guest appearances. And I'm like, okay, is it, and like Josh, what's his name? Josh,
Gad.
No, Josh,
no.
The guy who was in Trap, Josh.
I don't know what Trapped is.
Hartnett. The M. Night Shyamalan movie. I thought you watched that.
Was Josh Gad not in this, though? I feel like he was.
I feel like there is Josh Gad in here somewhere at some point. But I don't remember what role he played.
But that wasn't the Josh you meant. Okay.
But just like as everybody starts becoming more recognizable, it's a little distracting. Anyway, that's digression there. But the point I was making more broadly was that it can feel a little self-indulgent, but at the same time, there's a lot of value in being a performer who has to inhabit a character and flesh them out. So this is, even at that level, this is like a fascinating experiment that these actors write this script as if they have imagined, fantasized, maybe even they've done this on the side of like context for scenes in the show, this imagined relationship that these two characters had. And now they actually get to show it. And instead of being like, indulgent or unnecessary, it actually feels like enriching to the characters in some way. And exactly like you mentioned, I like all the subtle details that we see, some of the things you touched on, that yes, it definitely feels like Richie is performing, but I also think this is indicative of the type of person that Richie is, where Richie's like, with you. We're on an adventure.
Yes.
And, of course, and this is all in his mind. I have to bring a gun. This is obviously an important case. And of course, the absolutely hilarious punchline at the end that they deliver this precious cargo to find out its fans for the other restaurant. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, I guess I'll see you again when we have another important mission. And the guy says, probably not. The FedEx strike is over. So it's just like, you were just driving this out here because FedEx was on strike.
Mhm.
That was the entirety of the context for this show, which is a great punchline to this whole thing. But
And
also,
I was thinking too, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
go ahead.
interrupt you. That Richie character, when you know a person like that in real life, isn't that just the best? The guy who is the life of the party, and you know that anytime you're with that person, it's going to be a fun time.
You know, what's interesting about that too is that I think the show does a really good job of showing you specifically here how Mikey isn't that person and how irritated he is at the beginning at him being that person. And speaking of great performances, that moment when Richie like kind of takes the stage. I mean, it starts earlier when they decide to go and do that pickup basketball game, which is so much fun. What a blast. But then later on, when they're back and he's back in his mood again, he's to be lured out of his car and Richie's in the bar and he's kind of annoyed. He doesn't really want to be doing this. And then Richie starts telling that story and you see just incredible performance. You see John Barenthal's face like light up. All of a sudden, you see like he loves this guy. And this is why he loves this guy, because he can like bring him out of this funk. And just, he like loves that he's just in his element, telling this story, owning the room. And that's something that Mikey cannot do, right? So you see that. And then, of course, like you said, it curdles. That very thing that he loves about Richie in one scene turns on him. And this is something I only thought about for some reason. I don't even know why it came into my mind, but only when I was preparing for this conversation and playing it through in my mind again, right before we started recording, it made me think about something else. And again, it goes back to the idea of relationships we've had with people in our past who are like this, that at the end, when Mikey is turning on him, there's so many layers to what's happening. One is that he's angry at Richie, maybe jealous that Richie has this lightness of being, which, by the way, we have discovered is he is struggling with his own place in the world as well.
Yes.
And that boisterous version of himself is a kind of armor as well. So we know that. But Mikey, who cannot do that, doesn't see it that way. And of course, we've had that experience with people in our lives too. I've had that myself, where you know that someone is trying really hard, putting on the performance, and that can be appealing and it can be irritating in equal measures, or it depends what day of the week it is when they irritate you or not. And by the way, that's what's so great about that character. In season 1, Richie really annoyed me. And by season 3 or so, he was like my favorite character on the show, right? So because they added these layers to him. But what's great about the Richie situation or that interaction towards the end is that not only that he, we understand that there are levels to what's happening there as well. He is also angry. We've seen, I've called this out on the podcast before. I've definitely had situations in the past where you have two people who hang out all the time. They're like attached at the hip. They're like buddy all the time. This many times girls, but guys are like this as well. And then all of a sudden, one of them's in a relationship where they have a new job, where they're traveling all the time. Their routine is broken. And now that person can't be what they were to you before. And it grows like animosity in the relationship, right? Because they're like, why can't things be the way they were? And I think with the relationship with Tiff and with the baby on the way, Mikey's fearing that he's losing Richie as well. But at the same time, oddly, it's like maybe he is pushing him away so that he can do, because think about it, in the timeline here, we are very close to when he commits suicide, which kind of weighs on this entire show, right? As a matter of fact, given where the very final moments land in this episode, it makes me wonder if he is reflecting on that time together, because it probably was one of the last times he hung out with Mikey before, or at least hung out of course they worked together at the restaurant, but like hung out like this alone. Maybe one of the last times they had this kind of interactions before his suicide.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. And also, were you finished with your thought? Because I have a separate thought.
The only other thing I would add to finish my thought was that I feel like it is in a way pushing Mikey. I should say pushing Richie away so that Mikey could do what he is planning to do. And but also like a lot of times friends can do, could be like, I'm very supportive of your decision, but then be like, they know secretly, for example, that Richie may very well have these concerns about being a father, given his own father. And he is definitely poking him in that wound, right? So it's interesting that, which friends do, unfortunately. When you spend too much time with each other, you become each other's best friends and worst enemies at the same time.
Well, I think people with those types of mental health issues, and again, I'm partly speaking from my own personal experience, they know the spots that you're most sensitive about, and they specifically pick those when they lash out because they are trying to hurt you, perhaps as some sort of weird test.
Yes.
I can't say what motivates it, but it can be extremely, extremely painful because they pick your most vulnerable spots.
And yes, absolutely. And I think that's definitely what's illustrated there. Oh, and of course, another thing that's illustrated here that we've seen, which I think is one of the strongest aspects of the episode as well, is of course showing us that Mikey and his mom have some of the same mental
for sure
issues, right? And by the way, all the siblings, perhaps like now we've seen this connection, now that we spend more time with Mikey, that all the siblings have aspects of that. But how incredible is that scene where he's talking about like he was such an anxious kid.
Yeah.
And his mom would come in and scratch his back, and she would tell him like minute by minute, here's what you're going to wear tomorrow. This is what you're going to have for breakfast. You're going to have a great day at school, like walking him through the whole entire day. And it put him at ease because this is like the kind of anxiety that he's constantly playing out in his mind. And she's like narrating it and walking him through it and calming him down. But then, of course, because she's bipolar or whatever it is, she could just take that away and just like he does to Richie, find the thing that he is most insecure about and just dig in on it. And I'm like, oh, that is so telling. And again, it's so heartbreaking because we know first of all, we've all had that experience at some point, with our parents or with someone who we're very close to, who will turn on you because they're having a bad day to some lesser extent. But could you imagine being with a mom like we've seen here, who that, level of, effort can be weaponized to either make you the center of the world or to become like a black hole of need or to lash out at everybody around her, right? And it's like that erratic nature that does happen in people we know is really difficult to navigate, obviously. But it is, what a beautiful, I thought, really amazing scene that really tells you so much about that character.
Yeah. And I thought also, if I didn't say it earlier, I'm not familiar with the actress who played Sherry, but she did a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah. She's actually very well known. We had seen her on the podcast here on that show. Dope Thief, actually, was one of the main players. I forget her name, something Ireland. I forget her name. But she is, she's like one of those people that would like, they just pop up in an episode of a show over and over and over again. And sometimes she's the lead of a show. Like I said, she actually was one of the main characters in Dope Thief last year.
She was really fantastic.
She's very good. Always very good. I agree.
I also wanted to say, as far as Mikey, it feels like this version of him is not necessarily consistent with what we've been shown of him before or told about him before, which is that he was the life of the party. Right. He lit up the room. Everybody wanted to be around him always. And we saw that when he offers, gosh, I can't remember if her name is Rita or Tina or something else entirely. Tina, thank you. When he offers Tina the job that day.
Which is such an incredible episode too. Yes, absolutely.
Such a good episode. It's such a great scene. So I wonder if we're supposed to be taking from this that he was winning his struggle before, or at least managing it better, but this is when it's starting to close in on him.
I think that's part of what we're seeing. And the other thing, and this is my read of it, so I guess you can have multiple reads of it, but I also think that sometimes when someone is the life of the party, like you are in your habitat, you run the restaurant and you represent that to the people around you in that context, you sometimes need someone else to be that for you, which I feel like that's what Richie played for him. But it also could be, I think you're absolutely correct, that Richie might just be able to read him, that, he maybe is this kind of boisterous, larger than life movie star in the neighborhood, but then he has these dark moods. And
I think
when he's one of these moods, you just back off.
That's a good interpretation, that because they're so close, it's Richie that sees what's really going on with him compared to a lot of other people. Because I think often when people die by suicide, many people say, oh, I had no idea they were struggling with anything. They always seemed like their life was perfect. So I think it's very viable that he's kind of putting on an act for other people, and only the people that are really closest to him see what's really going on.
A quick question for you about Sherry, by the way. So I didn't know about this until I was researching again, reminding myself about this episode for this conversation, because I haven't watched it in about a month now. That there's a theory, a very popular theory, that Sherry is all just in Mikey's head. And as I heard that theory, I suddenly started to play out some of those scenes, because in my solo commentary on this, I'm like, they're having their most intimate scene, like basically at toilet bowl level in that bathroom. I'm like, what a weird place for them to have this first date. And I started thinking that can't possibly be the case, because Richie interacts with her. She definitely, there's times when she's calming him down, for example, at the very end, but that could be just like the angel on his shoulder. It definitely seems that she is interacting with other people. Also, that when she says to him, when he says to her, I'll be back, and she says, no, you won't, that only really matters if there's someone to go back to. So I don't think that makes sense. Although there is definitely a read, like when he sees her outside, he's in the parking lot by himself, right? So there are aspects of it where it could be this phantom person. And the last reason I don't really buy that theory is that this is Richie reminiscing on this. So I'm like, where would this Sherry character have come up from if this is Richie's recollection of it?
Yes, but okay, first of all, I think that's a super fun theory. I agree.
I love the theory, but then I'm like,
I love the idea of the theory. But then also, like, Richie wasn't in the bathroom with them, right? Exactly. So we are seeing things theoretically as they really happened, whether Richie saw them or not.
True.
But also, to your point, he calls her Sarah that time, and she laughs about it. I don't think, if that's what they were going for, I don't think they would. It would be very easy to construct that without that exchange between the two of them. So the fact that they added it makes me think she is a real person. But I love the idea.
Same. And I think you could actually pull it off pretty much, even when she's sitting next to him, even when she's goading him into participating. She's talking to him, right? So it could all be in her.
Yeah.
But you touched on that specific moment when Richie sits next to her and calls her a different name, and he's just like, she's like, you got me. Then what? That doesn't make any sense in the context of, unless he now is starting to fantasize about Richie's interactions with his made-up girlfriend. It doesn't.
A bridge too far. Yeah.
If she's like, the angel, like Richie's talking to him, and then she's on his side making sarcastic asides, it still works. But that scene where he like cozies up to her and calls her a different name, I'm like, what was that? Makes no sense. And also the fun detail that she says, oh, I know you're like the backup goalie for the Devils or whatever it is. I guess it's not the Devils, right? I'm thinking New Jersey.
Blackhawks?
Yes. And but then of course that is how Richie is like kind of luring him out. Again, it doesn't really make sense if that's all made up.
Yeah, it's a great idea though. But I don't think so.
I do love it. And they've been going on and on. And by the way, I didn't research this theory, so maybe they have explanations for all these things. But I guess it's fun that there is the possibility of it.
Yeah,
he definitely feels the show has made her into this idealized fantasy version of a life he could have, for example.
Yeah.
Even in her history of like running away, and this is where she ended up, and the kind of the opposite of him, where he's like, I've been in one place my whole entire life. And that, of course, she ran away from a city only to end up in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. So
but that ended up not being true.
Exactly. Well, that's true. That's a good point. Well, actually, is that not true, or is that
Yeah, that was fiction. I just watched this yesterday, so I'm much
yes,
closer.
you've watched it more recently than I did.
Yeah, that was fiction. The fact was that she was from around.
She was
that
from there.
area.
Okay. All right. So then I guess they're parallel because they both are like from a place for their entire lives.
She's an arborist.
That's right. That's right. It's all coming back. But so yeah, I think that I think that's why she feels more like a fantasy character, because she represents a possible route for him other than what he's going to choose to do. Right. I think that's why she has this ethereal feel rather than just being a figment of his imagination. And then what do you think this sets up for the season? Do you think we're going to jump immediately in the season premiere to the car accident with Richie being T-boned at that intersection in the rain? Or do you think that'll happen later in the season? How do you think that's going to tie into this final season?
I feel like they could do something tricky with the time where they come in, and I have lost track of the timeline of this show and when things are supposed to be happening. But I think there's a possibility they could come in, say, a year after the car accident. Yeah. And then kind of show us everything that happened between the car accident and the point in time that we come in. But
I don't think we could jump that far ahead, just as some context setting for you,
okay,
if you want to revise your theory at all. But the reason I think we can't jump that far ahead is because remember that the last season when it wrapped up, it's like, remember, like their parachute has expired. And at that moment, when that clock goes to zero, it means that the bear now has to like sink or swim on its own merits. And and literally, what's the uncle's name again? I want to call him Uncle Junior, but that's from the Sopranos.
Jimmy?
Uncle Jimmy, yes. Uncle Jimmy is basically saying like, I'm looking to sell the building and liquidate and everything else. So they're just like going paycheck to paycheck, and they're struggling like any other restaurant, and they need to, potentially lose the building or whatever. Anyway, my point is, I think that ticking clock, I don't think we could jump that far into the future, but maybe I'm wrong. You might be right that like now we're a year out and they haven't been able to sustain themselves. And Jimmy is just
I feel like it could still work, but I also think there's just as equal a chance that they pick up right after this accident. I think it's quite possible.
We'll know very shortly.
In just a few days.
That's right. Very exciting. Okay. Now let's talk about this most recent episode of Cape Fear. So in a part of the reason I wanted to obviously talk about Gary, given the fact that we're on the cusp of seeing the next season of The Bear. But the other reason was because I watched this episode of Cape Fear and I kind of want to tap out of the show, to be totally honest with you.
You do?
Mostly because of the tone, and we'll get into this, but also because I felt like other than recapping plots, like plot, this happened and this happened, this happened, I didn't really have anything very dense or complex to say about this episode of the show. But before we get into any kind of breakdown, you seem to have liked it more than I did. So, by the way, episode's called Piercing. Is that what it's called? Piercing.
I did not pay attention to the episode title, but that would make sense. I would say this has become like one of these things that I can't quite look away from. But I did actually literally look away during one of the scenes because I didn't want to know what happened. And it's still not clear to me what happened. It might not be clear to the audience either. I don't know because I looked away.
Yeah, so, what's the scene?
Where Max visits the
with the fork in the eye.
Yeah.
They don't show anything. They don't show anything.
Okay. So I did look away because I just couldn't handle it. By the way, my number one biggest fear is death, and number two is snakes. So this was a rough one for me because the snakes just kept reappearing.
Ironically, maybe not ironically, but maybe apropos, my biggest fear is a fork to the eye.
Legitimate. So I feel like there is something, and I think this is purposeful, grotesque about this show.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely intentional. That's for sure.
And that grotesque aspect of it, once I've started watching it, I can't look away from it. I could make the decision to stop watching it. I don't think that's beyond my capabilities.
I can't stop.
I'm not compelled to that point. But once it started, I just can't stop.
It's like
I
Pringles.
I Googled the girl that plays, the young actress that plays Nevia, just as we started talking, because even there's something they've done with her appearance here. She's a very pretty girl.
She looks very different from scene to scene, by the way.
There's something grotesque about her appearance to me that I can't look away from. It's just interesting. What they've done here.
Yes.
I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but it's interesting.
It's also like the saturation. People have talked about this. Everything is like so oversaturated. Definitely using a digital filter, which I think is a little too much. I know it's expensive to shoot on film, but maybe this would work. Probably Cape Fear, for example, the movie it definitely was shot on film, and it has like that kind of very high contrast look. This is done with some kind of digital filter, which of course is easier and cheaper, but feels a little artificial. It feels a little too much. And even like in your description, you watch the previously ons with Nevia, and you see when she introduces her at the party, and she's just like, "Hi, I'm April," or whatever she called herself. Amber. And then you see her when she's talking to Anna, and they have her like all like this shadow under her eyes, just the way that they blow her.
So dark.
It's so funny the way that they, like you said, there's no subtlety at all in the visual language of this show at all. But this episode, by the way, directed by Reed Morano, who's a famous female cinematographer and won an Emmy for both as a cinematographer and as a director of the entire first season of The Handmaid's Tale, which I didn't watch, but obviously won multiple Emmy awards. So she's a like a celebrity cinematographer. And I have to say that part of my problem with this episode was the tone. And I think it's probably her selecting this and also probably doing the cinematography herself. But there is not only the music is so heightened, not only are the performances much more heightened in this particular episode, but even like there's a scene where they're arguing in the kitchen and the camera like snaps back and forth and then zooms in on the character's face. And I was just like, wow, like this show's really, it is
over the top,
starting to go into Ryan Murphy territory here. And I think part of that
that's what I'm afraid of. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm afraid of. I don't notice it in the way you notice it because you have an eye for that, but I just kind of have the takeaway.
I had like just this sense that I made an excuse. Alan, by the way, was emailing about how the show, he tapped out of the show like in episode 1 saying that it was too campy. And I was saying that the show hasn't become camp yet because the characters are sincere. Like, you know, when everything's insincere, I get turned off, right? When the characters are campy and the visuals are campy and everything's like that, I started to get turned off. But in this episode, we got to talk about Bardem's performance, which I've really been appreciative of up until this point. And there are scenes here where literally it's like he's a cartoon character or something out of a silent movie where Anna says something and he literally just like kind of like skulks into the frame with his hat on diagonally. They're like, and he skulks into the side. Like, you could do that if you want to. And then like back, and then walks back out the same way he came in. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is like Looney Tunes visual language here. Like, who told him to give this type of performance? And I really like this performance because it has been grounding in some ways. The
way you're describing it is reminding me of the Muppets.
But is like from the Muppet Show. Exactly. It's pretty much like Fozzie Bear performance here. It is very, very funny. But I don't know if that was the intention. Like he's not threatening at this point, even when he's putting a fork to someone's eye. So
I found that threatening. I will dissent.
Well, no, a fork. I'm joking that he's not intimidating when he's putting a fork to someone's eye. But there's
what about
many
with the car
scenes.
dealer guy?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, we now know the origin of the heart-shaped glasses.
Yes.
He has a great memory, by the way. Apparently he was philandering a lot and remembers specifically about this guy's wife.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I mean, how many years ago are we talking?
17 years ago. Yeah. I remember the glasses you guys were wearing.
Bananas.
17 years ago. It's still top of mind. By the way, given all of my negative commentary here, and there will be a lot of negative commentary, I did end up doing a deep dive on something that's happening here on the show. We have been talking about, I don't know whether there's definitely some Santeria references in here or something. Okay, now
For sure.
overtly, this is all, not all, but this is mostly overtly leaning into the whole Santeria thing. First of all, the prayer he's saying at the beginning is a Santeria prayer, and they haven't translated here, but he's speaking in Spanish. And in really general terms, he's saying something like, give me the strength of my family and like, whatever the saints they're praying to enact vengeance on my enemies. So he sees himself as being vengeful. That's the first thing. Second thing is that, now this is not Santeria, this is Christian iconography, but the eyes all over his back. And of course, the angel of death as well, or some versions of the angel of death. Most importantly is that there is the, this is really funny when you just think about Christian iconography, by the way. People think this is the seraphim. I think I'm mispronouncing that, but that terminology is actually these wheels within wheels that spin in this. They're not embodied in any way. So that's not, but the cherubs, the cherubim, as they call them in the Christian mythology, which in, paintings that we see, those old school paintings, the cherubs are the cute little babies with angels on their back, wings on their backs, I should say, right? And the cherubs in the description in Revelations have 4 heads. They do have wings on their backs. They have 4 heads, and their bodies are covered with eyes. Even the wings have eyes on them, right? So angels are terrifying, utterly terrifying. They don't look like cute little babies flying around. But the reason I mention that, of course, is Max is covered with eyes. He has this angel of death on his back with wings. So this is Christian iconography, but he is seeing himself as some kind of vengeful angel. This girl, Nevia, her name is Heaven, spelled backwards.
I did not pick up on that.
She uses the screen name Angel X. And now, of course, she is probably Max Cady's illegitimate daughter, or at least believes herself to be, considering the fact that her mom was the nurse at the hospital and was kicked out for having a sexual liaison with Max. And by the way, that makes that whole thing we were saying, well, she's probably not his daughter because of the way she described him when Anna shows him the picture. Apparently, she either is his daughter or believes that she is his daughter. Which, of course, is extra creepy because he's making out with another character who probably in her mind, she's trying to suss out whether she is Cady's daughter as well. And they're making out with each other. So this show is really going there.
Yikes. I hadn't considered that maybe she believes she's his daughter, but she is not. So that's an interesting possibility.
That is the other possibility, that she is, maybe she did believe, given her history, that she was, but it might be that she over time discovered she was not his daughter.
Because he certainly acts like he does not have any children.
Yes.
And you would think that if someone was in that situation with him, they would let him know that they were pregnant and had a child, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And then what's up with the explicit duplication of language between what Max is saying and what she is saying?
Oh, yeah. So I mean, that's possible that she is also eavesdropping on. Yeah, but then she's the one who's communicating. Yeah, there definitely is some collaboration. We still don't know what that is, but there definitely seems to be.
Maybe there are 2 cloned phones.
Oh my God, it's just clone phones all the way down.
It's actually Max and Anna talking to each other this whole time.
They didn't realize they were all like cloning each other's phone. So it's one they're separated by one cloned phone, but they actually are communicating with each other via the children. What else do we have here? Oh, very importantly, and this is maybe a theory for the future to perhaps pique your interest of what Max's actual goals are, especially now that we've introduced, and let me just lay this out before I ask you the question, that they're laying into this Santeria thing and what that might represent, what Max's goals might be more broadly. So again, if we think like he is the one who murdered his son, and that's the expectation. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is getting revenge on people who did murder his son, which is an intriguing direction for the show to go on. Because think about it, he's praying for strength in his vengeance. He has the sonogram of the son. He has the picture, which we find out later in the episode is what Zach thinks that Adam would look like. He probably doesn't understand that this is like a copy of like some AI video he saw. He might have actually thought this is some kind of symbolism in this. Why is he drawing this picture of my would-be son? But most importantly, think about it. The kid's name is Adam, right? And, the first man was Adam. Adam was made from clay. And there is this very creepy mummified head, or maybe just like a sand head made from clay or dirt or something with those shells as eyes. So very, very creepy imagery early in this episode. But who knows? Maybe he thinks he can reincarnate his kid in some way. I mean, I don't know if he physically thinks he can I hope the show doesn't go in this direction. I want to be clear, but maybe he thinks that he can like somehow give his son life via Zach or something, or maybe it's more metaphorical, like win over Zach in some way. Because I don't
while
think
we're talking about names, one starts with an A, one starts with a Z.
A to Z
in the end.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, there's always symbolism in names. And but then I think about what happens here is one of the few scenes that I thought was pretty powerful in honestly very silly performances throughout, even though it was still overwrought, is a relatively early in the episode when we see that Max has run into Tom at that golf club or whatever it is. They just let they just let Max in, even though, no problem.
He's been paying dues this whole time.
That's true. I guess he was very wealthy because I'm sure those dues were not that cheap. But he's there as well, and he says to him, they're basically talking about being a proper father and that he wants the opportunity to be a father. And part of this is definitely messing with Tom's head, but I think he is sincere here as well. So again, I think something's being set up. There's some vengeance for his son that he's trying to seek. And how's the Santeria thing is definitely going to tie into it some way. Like I mentioned, I actually do honestly believe that he's going to try to have a relationship with his son. Now, when I say reincarnation, I don't mean that he thinks that he's going to transfer his son's soul into Zach's body, or if it's just like I'm going to win your son away from you in some way to have my own power over your son, which is probably more like.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? A lot of, symbolism in here that they are laying on this whole thing.
More than I was able to process, honestly. I hope it's not
supernatural.
As always. You can finish my sentence because I've said it so many times in our discussions, not just about this show, about other shows too. I hope it's not supernatural.
But is that intriguing to you to have like a battle for the soul, literally, of this boy, not in a supernatural way? And would that be intriguing to you as a setup for the rest of the season?
I find it interesting, but I would not want it to be the predominant plot.
That's my question for you. I honestly left this episode. They're obviously extending the story and setting up a lot of different moving pieces, and we can kind of speculate on one of them, what some of that means over the course of the episode. But I really didn't know where the show was trying to go at this point, and we're almost at the midpoint of the season. So I did kind of, and maybe I should bite my tongue, because sometimes this is like kind of like when we're talking about penultimate episodes and final episodes. Oftentimes in our conversations, we'll be approaching the midpoint of the season, and I'm like, I really don't know where the show is going. I'm kind of confused. And then like in episode 5 or 6 or something, it does come together. So this could be an episode that bumped me the wrong way, because like pilot episodes, they're putting a bunch of stuff on the table, and then they're actually going to show us what the shape of the rest of the show is in next episode. So this could be a rough episode because they're trying to get all the stuff out so they can start to organize it. But
it becomes more cohesive. Yeah.
But I got to tell you, with like that little aggressively leaning into the Santeria, the both kids now rebelling against the parents after just like the littlest nudge in the world, which could be thematically rich on its own, but is just kind of lost in the shuffle of all these things. And Max becoming essential to the operation of this organization, and honestly, probably not intentionally painting this organization as a corrupt, instead of being like that, the legal system is corrupt. It's like this organization is as corrupt or worse than the mistreatment of these prisoners in the first place, considering they all seem to have been guilty. And we could talk about that as well. And then we have this revelation about Tom's brother and what's happening to Zach and the parentage of this. Is she daughter or not? And of course, the big continuing, and I think going to continue to grow over the course of this show, the Juliette Lewis character now drunkenly wandering into the middle of the street. She's not some killer on the loose who's hypnotized by Max, it appears. She's actually someone who's known Max for a really long time, she's warning these women off. Yeah. He's bad. He's dangerous. He's going to control your mind. So I warned you. So all of this is, I think, way too many things going on in the show for my taste.
Yeah, I also feel, and this is the least of it, and I brought it up last week as well, the continued detail about the son's issues with the photographs with the girl Sophia or Sophie.
Yes.
It feels like we're spending too much time in the weeds of that. And I don't understand why. Maybe that will become clearer also.
Let's talk about Tom for a minute there. Tom actually, as a character, makes perfect sense to me when he's in the bar reacting to Max. I'm 100% on his wavelength. And then I don't know how the buffoonish dad stuff, especially intercut with this revelation that he's been hiding the fact that his brother committed suicide and that he's still, and as a matter of fact, when the therapist wants to push on that at all, he's like, this is over.
We're out. Yeah.
But, he is still a buffoonish dad as well, with his, every time he has to dictate his his text messages with punctuation. They make a joke of that repeatedly in this particular episode. But also where Zach's like, I want to go to this art show. And he's like, yeah, let's go to this art show. And he's wandering around going he even dictates that to his wife. I think he's having a great time, period. But of course, it turns out he actually wants to get closer to Sophia. So the Tom characterization is a little odd here, but the comedy still works a little bit. But what did you think about that whole confrontation? And what do you think Sophia, or Sophie, whatever her name is, what it indicates? That she seems like she awkwardly wants to reach out to him, doesn't seem to be as put off as the mom seems to indicate. But then, of course, she calls him at the end, which then opens the door again for Angel X to infiltrate. So what did you think about what that all indicates? Again, by the way, that only complicates things even more, because now it does seem that Sophie's not just there to slam the door in his face to potentially spiral him off. When we see her earlier, she seems to almost want to forgive him. So is there a chance for some reconciliation with that character too? Again, I just feel like there's so many things that are just happening on the show all at once.
Do you think her mom made her make that call?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was her on the phone and her mom's telling her to, you have to tell him to put an end to this. Because what do you think? When he's there and she's there, she doesn't feel like, I'm terrified, get away from me. She seems like she is not saying what she wants to say, and everybody else is speaking on her behalf.
That could be.
She could just be so incredibly uncomfortable with the situation. I mean, I guess that's another way to read it as well.
And as a teenage girl, you might be mortified of making a scene and all of that. You're asking me what I think, and the reason I'm silent is because this was the intro to the whole thing. I don't know what to think about all of this.
You're just there for the experience at this point.
What is happening? And even when they came home, obviously, or not obviously, but I will say, I've never been in anything similar to this situation as a parent whatsoever. And my kid is much younger anyway. But I would think that I would be furious on the way home at being set up in that way. I know this kid is having mental health issues, so maybe that's why the dad does not rail into him. But I was surprised that the next scene wasn't him just screaming at the kid as they get out of the car. How could you have misled me like that? I never would have brought you. Instead of just, you should have told me.
Right.
And then
You should have told me and we wouldn't have gone. That's the rest of that sentence.
and then to immediately, I understand the therapist taught him some breathing exercises for when he's spiraling, but to just directly into the pool, like not even a few seconds to take off the pants. I don't know.
That is one of the craziest things. The fact that not only that that's his reaction and that's the show's explanation to his behavior, exactly like you said, the fact that even if he's like, I need it immediately, the fact he wouldn't just like strip down to his underwear before he jumped in.
Right. It's your family pool. I mean,
it's hilariously and all of that. And then his reaction when his dad's like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, Dad, relax. Like, come on, what do you think I'm doing? I just
obviously my breathing exercises.
I didn't even take my sneakers off before I jumped in the pool. What do you think this is? Be rational, Dad. I am being rational. A floating body fully clothed looks like death.
Exactly.
It's, my God, so hilarious. That's the unintentionally hilarious moment. They could have at least done what I described, like, where he strips down and jumps in. I wonder if that was like in the script, but then people would say like, because that would make sense, right? Imagine he strips down, jumps in the pool. His dad turns around, sees that, still freaks out. And then you could be like, he wouldn't have taken off probably if he was just committing suicide, he wouldn't have stripped down beforehand. And then you could be like, because the point of that, all of that, to going back to your previous point, is that he's going home. And we know, but the rest of he can't admit this, that the context for this is his son, his brother committing suicide, perhaps because of something that happened at high school or whatever. And he is now terrified of pushing his son, terrified of any of this.
The one to find his brother, which is so
exactly. So of course, as soon as he sees his son, he's like, oh my God, it's happening again. And this is exactly his biggest fear when he sees his son having mental health issues. And he can't admit it. He's not acknowledging it at all. And he's almost afraid, I think, of bringing it up in a way as if he would like manifest it in some way. Yeah, so that makes sense. But we understand that without that moment, but that moment was so over the top and so contrived and how it was set up. I was laughing at how ridiculous.
So strange.
Oh my God, what a crazy sequence of events. Dad, what do you think I'm doing? I think you're trying to drown yourself. What are you talking about? And any other rational person would make the same assumption.
It's just deductive reasoning.
Oh my God, so crazy. Meanwhile, Natalie and Nevia are hanging out. What did you think about all this? This very casual soccer match that's going on, and she runs off.
Well, it's a practice.
Yes,
so,
true.
In fairness,
I don't know. Watching those girls' dribbling skills. This is recreational soccer. No one's getting a scholarship from this team.
I assumed it was the school team, and I can't tell good dribbling from bad dribbling for the most part, despite my hundreds of hours watching youth soccer at this point. But definitely from the pennies, it was a practice.
For sure. But yeah, she decides to throw off her jersey there and then head out to get her nipple pierced with Nevia. Just one.
Grateful we didn't get a close-up of that.
Yes, thank you. Well, what did you think about Nevia breaking into her friend's house, and when the dad shows up, she pops out that knife immediately? His first move is pop out the knife. Is that Chekhov's knife?
It may be, especially with the precursor of what if her parents come home? Well, we'll have to kill them.
She was literally serious about that.
I mean, maybe she was.
Oh, by the way, she does have a scrambler. This is like an interesting detail that they borrowed from your friends and
neighbors.
She can scramble all those devices. I'm not sure that's that easy, considering that
I wondered as well.
All security cameras useless. But again, we assumed already that she was in some ways hacking those systems. That it could just be like, hey, conveniently everything's scrambled and then there's a pile of dog poop on their lawn. It could just be her. To your point, that maybe it wasn't a dog at all. She's just out there with the scrambler taking a poop on their lawn.
I didn't want to get into that in the other episode, but I definitely consider the possibility it's human.
Unfortunate, but true. All right, I
Yeah.
got to talk to you. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Just that I guess this girl is just dead set on invading this family one way or the other.
By all any means necessary.
First of all. And second, this is a tangent, but to go back to your comment about the cinematography, what do you think about this thing that they're doing with two things? First, with the piercing, the way they cut away, right,
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
stock shot of, what was it, flowers?
No, wasn't it? She was stabbing like the berries in the bowl.
Thank you. That kind of choice, and as well as the negative exposure thing that they're doing.
Oh,
throughout.
yeah. The negative exposure thing is definitely a callback to the 91 Cape Fear. And again, I just feel like they're just putting it. We did see it in the very first moments of episode 1, and we haven't seen it again. I don't think we've seen it again. So again, I just feel like I just think that the director's making too many choices here. The show doesn't need it. It's already so over the top. You need to rein that in. My opinion, or at least my taste, I should say. Then again, maybe the show's telegraphing this is the type of show it is, which might just not be a show for me. So we'll see how it plays out from this point on. And similarly, you know that there's that scene earlier where she's angrily stabbing into the fruit, and they reuse that when she gets pierced. Again, it's just a little too much sauce on the hot dog, as they say. A little too much mustard.
I have never heard that phrase in my life, but
Too
I
much
get your
mustard
point.
on the hot dog. I might be getting it wrong. I might have invented it.
I'm on board.
That was a callback to Widow's Bay. Someone was making a very important presentation, like explaining the mythology of the island on last week's episode. And she comes up with this phrase saying, like, you know what they say, the family that swims together drowns together. And someone called her out as that's not really a call. That's not actually a saying. And then almost ends the presentation. She goes like, oh, I guess you know better than me then. I might have just done that with the mustard reference. So I'll be like Rosemary on Widow's Bay. Okay, here's the thing I want to mostly talk to you about. It's kind of been rubbing me the wrong way the whole entire show. And the reason it rubs me the wrong way is not even the fact that it's showing this kind of social justice organization in a negative light, because that could be an interesting take, that just see these people being very calculating and being very like not caring if the people are innocent or not, just wanting to raise money, just wanting to improve their social profile. That could be an interesting direction to take the show. It's just that it feels like, I don't think that's the intention of the show, but it like inadvertently is presenting this as like a pretty messed up, minimally or dysfunctional, at least, organization, if not downright malfeasance here at this point. And it's almost like they keep using the fact that Ray was an honest person who was exonerated and now has like done the right thing as like their get out of jail free card, for basically showing that, potentially it looks like they're leaning on the fact that this guy that they're trying to get out of jail right now is probably or possibly guilty. The other guy gets out of jail, ends up fighting with his mom, and maybe that was a murder-suicide. Maybe it was somebody else. We still don't know, but it's possible that him coming back to the house he basically got his mother killed. Max is potentially, whether he was the murderer or not, getting out of jail only to terrorize other people. So as someone who is like worked adjacent to all this, does it bother you the way that this organization is presented, or how do you feel about it?
You had mentioned something before about, in connection with the snake guy, that the guy who is currently in prison that they just exonerated in this last episode, you think he's guilty. I don't think that. I think they mentioned something previously that he was not physically in that place on that day. Right. So I don't think he's guilty, but I do think that they've reached by any means necessary a level as far as how to exonerate him, which is a problem. It doesn't bother me conceptually, because I do understand that this is fiction and a dramatization, and that makes it all much more interesting. I don't think that this is some indictment of these innocence type organizations. I think I don't think it's easy to get someone exonerated. And it requires a lot. I don't think this show was very realistic, this episode of this show.
Well, I got to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Is one recording with a knife to your eyeball saying, with, just unconfirmed, I was there and he wasn't. It was this other guy. You're getting out of jail tomorrow, my friend.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to do it. So because there are so many levels of review and hoops that you need to jump through in order to get somebody exonerated, I don't think that there's any, maybe I'm being an idealist, I don't think there's any realistic possibility that these things are happening in reality. So I'm willing to go along with it for the sake of the plot.
That was going to be my follow-up question, was that is the fact that, for example, there said this woman shot herself in the head and had the knife, Max Cady, we're not going to take his case. Oh, no. He's already out of jail. Didn't this happen like 2 days ago? And he's out of jail already? Okay. How long has he been out of jail? Oh, yeah, like this whole week. Okay, then maybe he was throwing skunks in my pool. It's pretty crazy.
They did say something with this current guy about it's going to take a couple days for us to get through this paperwork. So it wasn't like he's walking out that day.
We're not even going to reopen the case to wait a second. You have a recording from someone we haven't questioned ourselves on your cell phone. Don't worry, 48 hours will process you. You'll be right out.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's pretty crazy. But to your point, I think obviously what they're trying to say here is that she is willing to cut corners now to get what she wants. And maybe she did the same thing when. And so the most generous way to read this, I think, is that Max is testing her to see what.
Oh, and by the way, what did you think? Sorry, I think that's a fair interpretation.
Yeah.
It just reminded me. What did you think about the scene where he kisses her?
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you about that, too. So it's very strange that he's forcing himself upon her. I don't know if he's trying to feel out whether it is reciprocal or not. So I'm not sure about that. However, what I actually thought, given how awkward it is that people are being surveilled on this show continuously. And I would not be surprised at all if there's a picture that shows up on Tom's desk or someone shows up and says, look what I saw. Anna has been traveling a lot with Max and look what I have. Right. And that was set up in some way as a way to, again, they're all trying to create rifts, right? With the kids to the parents, again, it's like the whole idea of, separating everybody from each other because of strength in numbers. But the son is on an island, the daughter now drifting off, and now have the parents split apart. And that's the last, I think that's part of what is happening here, is to break them apart. And then, the real plan gets set into motion.
Well, what did you think about her reaction in connection with the speculation that something happened between Max and Anna 20 years ago?
Yes, that's a really good point, because it was confusing to me. On the one hand, I wanted to see her reaction immediately to get a better read on that. Is it possible that they had a romantic relationship before? I would say maybe it's a flaw in the performance. It feels like that was completely unexpected.
I agree.
Which, by the way, if they had had a ongoing sexual relationship, I assume that if she'd gotten pregnant by him, it wasn't just like a one and done type situation. Even if it was a one and done situation, you would feel like that there was a lot of building up to that inevitable one interaction, possibly, which of course would still be a sexual tension between them now. They wouldn't be. So she seemed shocked that could happen, not as opposed to it being like she assumed it was going to happen, or that he was going to make a move like that and she'd be shocked by it. Yeah, or that she was reciprocal in the moment and in a way that it telegraphs that, right? That exact thing. So anyway, all that is to say that it throws a lot of cold water on that theory.
I agree.
But it could be, like I said, it could be just a bad choice in the performance. And of course, I'm not even blaming the actors, because they probably do 10 different versions of the take. So whoever edited this together made a choice to make her look like she was kind of surprised by it. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't know if you had a previous sexual relationship with
Right,
somebody
right.
and you're afraid of being alone with them because maybe something's going to happen. When something happens, your reaction shouldn't be shock. It should be like, I knew that was going to happen and I
Yeah.
shouldn't have let it happen. Like that should
Right.
be the basic reaction. Oh, importantly though, as far as like what is Max, as far as like, is he a chaos agent? Is he evil? Is he some kind of, does he see himself as some kind of righteous vindicator? We have to think about the Santeria. Well, not we have to, but I did want to lay the whole Santeria reference onto this because importantly, the whole idea that he said to Smiley that he needs to basically record this message because remember, you've been crowned and like what that means. And he says that was a long time ago. And he's like, once you're crowned, you're always crowned, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, this is why I started to do my deep dive into Santeria and like what that actually means. And I think this is important to, again, how Max might see himself and how that whole ritual at the beginning could be interpreted, that when you're crowned, it means that supposedly that saint or like that god that you pray to, like sits on your head, like basically you're crowned with that. But importantly, now I don't have it written down, but the god that he references starts with an O, and I can't find it here in my notes. But that particular god is like the god of gods, basically. So it's like the god. And you could even think that maybe if Max sees himself as that, right? He's the one who made Adam. So that he thinks like this guy needs to answer to him. That's one interpretation. But more importantly, that when you are supposedly crowned by that god is the god of justice and balance. And it's always drawn like in white, like it's basically like the purest of the gods, right? And so the fact that he's like, how dare you be crowned by that god and not go through with this? It doesn't seem like he's saying like, why don't you lie to me on this recording? If this is like the god of justice, it means like he's like, you need to tell the truth to get Reuben out. So it is possible that his actual confession is legitimately, exoneration of Reuben. And if that's Max, is obviously his methods are questionable. But if his goal is to be a righteous vindicator, then A, it makes him more noble, at least in his own eyes. But B, he might really want to solve the actual murder of his family as well. So into what you mentioned, I think in last week's episode, there is a possible reading of this where instead of Max being a bad guy and is just a pure bad guy, that Max might be like he's turned into a terrorist against his family because he was wronged, right?
He's a vigilante.
And then the question becomes, if over the course of the show we find out that he is this vigilante, then do we suddenly agree with his methods? I think that we're going to he probably want the family to survive by the end. I presume. I don't know. If they annoy me enough, I might want them to be. We might be rooting for Max by the end of this show. There's definitely a possibility. Oh, and of course, the other interesting thing here I thought of is the snakes themselves, right? Because even symbolically, I don't think this is part of Santeria, but some other rituals, the snake is a symbol of renewal, right? You shed your skin. And I think they've even said that on the podcast, on this show before, the idea of shedding your skin, right? So again, can you reform yourself, right? Literally, that is potentially what this organization is supposed to represent. So interesting to see, to have that in the reading as well. And I think so. The snake, I think, is very important to the mythology, although he does kill this snake, which obviously sort of sets off this whole confrontation with Smiley in the first place.
I don't want to talk about snakes.
What's your problem with snakes?
It's inconceivable to me that somebody could even need to ask that. They're so creepy. They have no arms and legs, and they're just getting around all over the place, climbing things. And the forked tongue, and sometimes the tongue is black, and the beady eyes, and how they unhinge their jaw. Oh my God. I mean, yikes.
You make it sound so appealing. So anyway, I found my notes about this god, by the way. So the god is Obatala. He's the eldest Orishi. The Orishis are the gods. He's the father, very important. And he is the king of heaven, Nevia, and the owner of all heads. So basically the head of all the heads. And But yeah, he represents purity, peace, justice, and creation. So creation, of course, we have that head with the eyes and the potential creation. Adam, right? Adam was created from from dirt or from sand. But more importantly, purity and justice, right? Like, so he's like saying, hey, you have to, you submitted yourself to this God who represents justice. So again, it could be that Max is telling him to tell the truth. So it could be this exoneration of Ruben is all on the up and up. Now, that's what's being represented by these interactions in the show. The fact that everybody's going to be like, that's all the information I need to know about. Oh, you weren't there from a third party? Okay, that's all I need. When you said you weren't there, you were definitely going to go to death row. But when some other random person says you weren't there, we can let you go.
And not even in person, just,
And not even like someone's like, okay, let's reopen the case. Oh, wait a second. We saw his Easy Pass. We have a picture of him going through an Easy Pass toll lane. Now that we've done the full investigation, we proved he wasn't there. No, it's just like, okay, we're done. Set you free. We just got to file the paperwork. And maybe we could just get to the very end. Of course, we have like, what does Nevia have in store for both of these kids? But before then, of course, the other thing we're going to talk about is this utterly hilarious Juliette Lewis wandering the streets with her green leather raincoat. That scene, and then, of course, showing up, a very cool shot, by the way. Again, a little too much mustard, if I'm even right about my terminology there. Again, in the cinematography, but still a very cool, memorable shot where she has the camera out and the flash bulb going on, but the sun is setting behind her too. So it's like this very, very powerful light in Anna's face as she's being recorded and warned off. But what do you think? Yeah, Juliette Lewis, which I do like as a performer, makes some big choices. And is this working for you? Are you intrigued by this character? What do you think?
I am intrigued by this character, I will say. I'm happy she stopped wearing the mask.
Yeah.
I like
Well, now we don't have
Juliette
to hide it
Lewis's
anymore.
face. I think she looks great. And I'm curious where this is leading. I think she also is bringing a underlying creepiness, or maybe just explicit creepiness, to this whole situation.
I'm curious how they're going to use her, and I do find her compelling, even when has a certain style. I did think she looked great in here as well. Curious, but a lot of choices here on the show.
I was thinking, this is not the point whatsoever, but I was thinking she looks so much better here than she looks in Yellow Jackets, and I guess looked in Yellow Jackets, and I think she's supposed to be a fairly mentally unstable person in both places, but she's
Yes.
a much more attractive mentally unstable person in this one.
Oh, and by the way, if you see the coming attractions for next week, just on the Apple app, it's just a shot of her, and her hair looks great. She looks great. Yes, her next episode, I guess, is going to be about her. She's a large chunk of it will be about her, since they do center her in the artwork for the next episode. Yeah, and of course, after all of the tough day Zach had, he reaches out to Angel X, and she's like, "Let's play." And I guess we will find out what that means. Does that mean she's going to mess with him some more? Let's eat some more toes? Or where did his toe go, by the way? He ate it again. I just like that. At least he had a sense of humor about that with his dad. I ate it again. What did you think about that moment, by the way, when Tom slaps himself? So I guess we know where the son got that.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Had we seen that before?
No, I think it's the first time we see it, because I was kind of shocked in his reaction to seeing. I thought it was very powerful when he saw his son slap himself, and there's this like pain that goes across his face. But now it could be a recognition that this is something he does to himself as well, which of course now, if you draw this tight coupling between Tom's mental state, despite what he presents, he even says that at one point, right? That he just had issues when he was younger, and then he just thought of the person he wanted to be, and then he acted like that person, and then one day he was that person. But is he really, or is this just this performance of calm on the outside, and under it all, he is very empathetic to Zach because he feels like that, or maybe he was that person at some point, which I think we all have that anxiety when we look at our kids, I think, right? Maybe not to this extent, but. So do you have any theories for what Nevia's plot might be planned?
I don't have any theories, because I think what's missing and what we're supposed to be wondering about is whether she is connected to Max and they are working together, which is what makes sense, especially given the overlap in the semantics of the things they're saying, or she's just her own vigilante that's taking it upon herself to invade this family.
Well, the final moment where Ray informs her that her birth correlates perfectly to the mom's time being inside the prison, we're obviously supposed to be like, she certainly is his daughter. But then again, this show might be showing us that, because that's not going to be the final payoff, right? So I guess it all is part of the game that the show is playing with us, our expectations.
And so I think that's the question they want us to be asking. And I personally see it being equally likely either way right now. I don't know if you have a theory.
Oh, I don't. At this point, I got to tell you.
I don't want to. My investment in this show is done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am curious at least to see if the show has some shape to it that forms in the next couple of weeks. And we'll maybe take a quick 5-minute temperature check, even as we talk about the bear in the next couple of episodes. So I'll probably keep up with it minimally to see if we are going to come back to it as we discuss it on the show after we stop our bear coverage. But in general, like the whole, I am actually interested in some of the symbolism and something that might be developed over there. And even some of even when they get stuff wrong, like the way that single, what do you call it? Like recording, what do you call it when you only need single consent? What do you call that?
Single party consent.
Single party consent.
Yeah.
Even like when they maybe aren't exactly correct on the way they handle all that, I'm still curious on how they're trying to use these things to tell their story. But honestly, with the plot, there's just so much going on with the plot. I don't even want to speculate too much on which one of these things are going to matter or not, because I honestly feel like these type of shows, when we get to the end, it's almost like they're hiding what is usually like a pretty straightforward plot by the time we get to the end. And a lot of the other thing is just filling time. So I hope that's not the case, but I also don't want to overinvest in theorizing on stuff that it doesn't pay off later on, which only makes me more disappointed with the show, usually, in that case.
I understand that.
But it all remains to be seen. One more question for you, Sona. Toy Story 5 is coming out this weekend, is going to have the biggest opening weekend of the year, it looks like, around the world. A phenomenal success. Incredible that Toy Story, now 30 years into this Toy Story franchise, the series is still continuing to be so robust, and the reviews have been fantastic for it. I'll probably be watching it, but are you guys going to watch it? Does your son have any relationship to these Toy Story characters?
He has some. I think he's seen at least some of the other movies. It's not like a huge favorite in our house. I could see it being something that we go see just to occupy time.
Yeah. Especially if it's hot out, if it's 98 degrees, which I don't think it's going to be.
But this is one of these things. I have to be in a very specific mood to watch something that I know is going to devastate me.
Yes.
And that mood doesn't come around often. So I probably will avoid it just because I know it's going to pluck at all the heartstrings. And that's not something that I generally purposefully walk into.
The Toy Story 4, by the way, which, first of all, and I've heard this one is not as much of the wrenching of the heartstrings. Toy Story 4, for me, was not as emotionally devastating as some of the Pixar films can be. And the highlight of that, by the way, is Keanu Reeves, little motorcyclist, in that he is so hilarious. Like, it's such funny. Yeah, very, very funny. That one is, I think it's very safe to just throw it on. It's just a blast. It's very funny throughout. I've heard this one, by the way, Toy Story 5, I hear is also very funny. So maybe not as traumatic. And maybe the show the series has become less traumatic as it goes along. All right, Sona, we will see how Toy Story does. We'll see how the Bear season resolves. It'll be the end of the whole thing, although we probably won't be able to watch all of it before we just touch base next week. And then, of course, The Agency as well. We'll be getting a feel for season 2 of The Agency, all coming in the next week or so. The 4th of July is coming.
Time flies.
It's incredible. More than halfway through the year.
Wow.
All right, Sana. Thanks again for the conversation.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.